Nice to see so many people here. I would like to welcome you to this seminar focusing on a co-production between Sweden and Germany. And a special welcome to our German guests, where they are. They come a long way to be here. My name is Ulrika Nissell, and I'm working at the Swedish Media Desk, which is an information office for the media program. I also have my colleague with me, Anders Wilhelmsson, sitting there. Film region Stockholm-Mälardalen with Beata Mannheimer initiated this seminar, and we're happy to co-arrange it with you and with the Stockholm International Film Festival. Co-production between European countries is a way to strengthen the industries. It enables higher budgets, and it has been shown that co-productions travel better than entirely national films. We need a strong European industry to be competitive towards the rest of the world. The media program supports the European audiovisual industry by giving support for development, marketing, distribution of films, as well as training for the industry. One of our most important tasks is to enable the industry to meet in training, markets, and festivals such as here. The case study we will take part of today, Simon Georgs, is one of the films that have been supported by the media program. And now I leave the floor to you, Beata.
Thanks. Well, my phone is off, yeah. This seminar started as a part of a mentor program for film producers here, that film region Stockholm-Mälardalen, where I'm working. We started that in February, and this seminar is actually the ending of this program. But when we started to arrange this seminar, we realized that we wanted as many people as possible to take part of it. So now you are here, and we are also filming it today, so that even more people will be able to take part of it. This seminar is supported by the County of Stockholm Administrative Board. That's a horrible word in English. Länsstyrelsen in Stockholm. And it's, as Ulrika said, it's a co-production with the Media Desk and also with the Stockholm Film Festival. But I'm not going to stand here and talk to you, because I want to leave the floor to our co-production experts. First, Conny Hammelmann, who is head of the German National Film Fund. Yeah, National Film Fund, DFFF. And Christer Nilsson, who is producer at Göta Film. Stefan Reuter, this is also a horrible name. It's Schmitz Katze Film Kooperative.
It's horrible.
No, it's not horrible. It's wonderful, but it's yeah. And then our
also.
Yeah. And then Lisa Taube, who is our moderator today. So please take the floor.
So, I don't know if my microphone maybe is a bit loud. It sounds like I'm screaming. I just wanted to make a quick check, mainly for us who will be sitting here in front, about you. So if those of you who are producers would just raise your hands. So how many of you have made international co-productions? And how many have worked with Germany? Okay, a few, not too many. Then we know, and I also want to stress that we all feel that it's going to be a better event if you feel welcome to participate. So if you have questions, just raise your hands. It's for all of the guests here, and we can have maybe more of a dialogue than a monologue. So feel free to ask questions. There are no stupid questions, just stupid answers. And with those words, I leave the floor to Connie Hannan.
Can you all hear me? Yes, I can hear myself. So good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invite to Stockholm. It's very funny and very nice for me to be at a media co-organized event, because I used to work for the German media desk for 11 years, so it's really nice to see my colleagues here. And of course, Beata, thank you as well very much for the invite. So I'm starting the kind of, let's say, boring part. I don't have fancy pictures. I tried, but the faces got all long, and so I took them off again, so you get a presentation without pictures. I'm sorry, so you just have to listen to me. But I will be as fast as I can. Yes, as Lisa has introduced, I'm the project director, they call it, or project manager of the Federal Film Fund in Germany, the DFFF. The Americans call it the DFFF, so feel free, whatever you want to call it. But that's the fund, the name of the fund. I started this February, so I am kind of new, but I think I've seen a lot of projects already. I have been asked to give you a short overview over the funding landscape in Germany as a whole, not only the DFFF, so that you get a better idea maybe what we have and where the DFFF is based, basically. So we have had, I think, like in Sweden as well, we have various national and regional funding schemes, and they are supporting the various areas of the audiovisual landscape. That means they want to strengthen the audiovisual landscape, of course, that's what they have been created for. And basically we can divide them into two sections, let's say. We've got the project-based funding, which is production and distribution of films, but also script funding and development. And we've got support to the film industry, to the other areas, which you can all see and the audiences can see, like the cinemas. Recently, of course, digitization, big topic in Germany, late, I think, because I think you are ahead of us. And then, of course, video distribution and training, etc. And so this is valid basically for the national and for the regional film funds as a whole. The German Federal Film Board is really our big funding body, let's say. It's based in Berlin. I am based with the FFA as well. The money comes from the levies from, as you can read, exhibitors, video distributors and broadcasters. So it is basically money really coming from the industry, which is used. Just to give you an idea about the budget more or less, because it varies, of course, because the contributions differ a bit. And so last year they had 89 million euro in total for all the funding areas, or for all the funding measures. The decisions at the FFA are taken by a board, by a jury, and they fight hard over the projects. And yes, then the producers get the results. This is taking place 4 to 5 times per year. Last year, 55 projects were funded and 20 were international co-productions, which I myself find quite a lot, because I know that the focus at the FFA is always really a focus on German productions. But still, I mean, there are co-productions as well, which I find is really good. And as Ulrika said in the opening, I think co-productions are really vital and films travel just better, and so I'm glad to see our own national film board to support these productions as well. The support is up to 1 million euro per film, and it has to be full-length feature films, and here it says a distributor should be attached to the project. I will explain to you how important it is to get the DFFF money. There it is really important to have a distributor, otherwise you can't get it. Then we've got the regional funds. I think that system is a bit similar here in Sweden. You've got regional film funds as well. We've got about, and I must be really honest, I forgot to count them all, but I think it is about around 10. We've only put the budget together of the 7 biggest regional funds, but they are really from north to south. South you would find them everywhere, and that is quite an amount, as you can see. It's 133.8, let's say, million euro altogether. So that's really a big funding scheme mechanism altogether. The money per project is the same, basically, like with the National Film Fund. And here I've said it is the aim to support economically and quality-wise promising films. That is always the aim, of course, but we will also have to admit that, of course, the regions want to find and want to finance films which are important for the region, which have a certain prestige and which bring the industry to the regions, of course. That's why they get the money from the regions and from the broadcasters. Very often it's a mix of financing. You have to pay the money back, but you have to pay the money back when you have a certain success. So when you make admissions with your films, then you will have to pay back the funding. That is to the FFA, to the National Fund, and to the regional funds. But now comes the DFFF. As you can see, we have had for over 40 years quite a good funding system in Germany. So why another fund? So this is what I'm going to show you in the next slides. What is it, the DFFF, and why do we have it? Where do we stand with it at the moment? What has it achieved, and how does it work? And then, as Lisa said before, please feel free whenever you have questions, because I'm always very fast, and maybe just assume that you know things. Just ask me whenever you like. So what is it? This is really a fund which gives subsidies, i.e. you never have to pay back. It is subsidies to producers who produce a cinema film, and you have to spend a certain amount of the budget in Germany. So come to Germany, shoot there, and you get the money. We need a distributor on board. I think I will probably stress that later again. The film really has to be distributed in German cinemas. That is our big focus. That is also the difference to some of the other funds. Although, of course, the FFA monies, most of the monies want the film to be in cinemas, but with us, you really need a distributor on board. The objective was, and that is why our Minister of Culture has basically really fought hard to have this fund, was really to improve the economic conditions, to attract also, of course, foreign productions, and to just improve the industry as such, to professionalize them, and yeah, to just really be more on the landscape of filmmaking. And that worked quite well. So where are we at the moment? This fund is a young fund. It was only established in 2007. I mean, you will, of course, since then have heard about other tax schemes, which we are not, but similar, about other schemes which have been introduced additionally to other funds. So ours has been introduced in 2007. It ran for 3 years. It was very successful. Then it was prolonged another 3 years. And so here we are in 2012, and at the end of the year, it is over. No, it is not over. The good news is it has just been prolonged. We got the permission first of all from our ministry, and then also from Brussels to continue. We had so far every year 60 million euros. Our budget for 2013, I would have told you until last Friday, will again be 60 million in 2013, but we really got surprising news, let's say, and that was that for the year 2013 we've got 70 million euros. You are one of the first audiences who really know about it, because even to us that was sort of a surprise, because it was a last-minute decision basically by our Ministry of Economics, and our Minister of Culture really fought hard for it. We don't know about 2014 and 15 because there is an annual process where the monies have to be confirmed within our budgets or within our economy, let's say. But we'll see. We have hopes, let's say. But it is confirmed until the end of 2015 as a fund. Yeah, we have some changes. I think that's not so interesting for you because I've seen not many people have co-produced, not many people, two somewhere, have worked with Germany. Basically, as you can see there, we have kept our guidelines, and you find them in various places. I think in front of the door, the red guidelines, if anybody's interested. They are, of course, the old ones because the new ones are not printed yet. But we really have only slightly amended the scheme because it works quite well. We have increased the number of prints because we have noticed that we would like the films to be distributed in a larger scale, and honestly, we also want the distributors to be really sure that they want to distribute the film. I think I might get some comments from a German producer there, looking a bit skeptical. We'll see how it works out. Then also the adaptation of certain visual effects positions have been very important because we have been in a very close exchange with the visual effects industry, and they said, oh, in some cases we just could not get the DFFF money, what can we do? And as we of course do not want to lose our industries, we have just amended some points, and we'll see whether we will have more VFX productions funded. I will not bother you with the rest. So what has the DFFF achieved? Really quite a lot, because we have received and welcomed really big productions in Germany, which I am convinced would in some cases not have come to Germany if they had not received the money. There are some famous examples, of course, Inglourious Basterds, Valkyrie, The Reader, Here we are, of course, talking about stories which have a relevance to Germany or which are German. Anonymous, I mean, those of you who have seen it, it is not at all a German story, but it's completely shot in Germany. And it was a lot of special effects, visual effects. That was really amazing. And of course, the big work, the Cloud Atlas, out in German cinemas from today. It's a 3-hour work. It's tough, but very impressive, I can tell you. And that was also mainly produced in Germany. And it got, I can tell you, because it's very open, it got the biggest contribution from the DFFF ever. It got 10 million euros, just as a subsidy. But it makes sense for Germany. I'll tell you later why. So we have supported so far between 100 and 115 productions per year. I think we will end with more or less the same result this year. Until the end of 2011, 296 million euro have been granted to movie productions coming to Germany. Of course, among them also purely German productions, quite a lot as well. As I said, the Cloud Atlas, 10 million, that sounds also to our taxpayers, because that is a point which I should maybe mention. I said before, the FFA, our National Film Board, is financed by the audiovisual industry's contributions, let's say. The DFFF really is tax money. And so you can imagine that sometimes the taxpayers say, why do you have to fund a film like Cloud Atlas with Tom Hanks, who has been in Berlin last week, by the way? And where does our money go? But really, it is proven that it is a very successful scheme, and that each euro given as a subsidy by the DFFF generates 6 in production budget. So a lot of money is being spent in Germany. Question? Okay, so it is a very successful scheme. Yeah, what is the result? Ulrika said it also in the beginning, more co-productions. That is also thanks to the media program, of course, but also in Germany, thanks to the DFFF, there are more co-productions. We have achieved higher budgets. It is a location, let's say, internationally attractive. I hope not only for the money, but still, also good reason. And then, of course, our professionals are highly educated and experienced. I mean, just as an example, Anonymous is a film where afterwards I think it was the costume designer and it was the set designer, they won the German Film Award, because, I mean, they had the chance to really work in an outstanding and very special film. And I think that is a soft effect which cannot be numbered in numbers and in money, but I think that's a very important effect as well of such a funding scheme. How does it work? It's easy. It's very easy. We all noticed. No, but it is a simple fund, let's say. It is really an automatic scheme, and it is not so complicated. Of course, the detail work is not easy, but the rules are easy, let's say, and clear. So you must be registered in Germany, or of course you find a good co-producer, which we've got a lot of in Germany. I'm sure you've got a lot of Sweden as well, so why not put them together? You have to prove that you have already produced a film, that it has been distributed at least in Germany theatrically. That is the so-called your reference film. We need a project showing that. If you haven't, by the way, there's also a rule which gives you the permission that if you do not have a reference film yet, but you are, for example, a younger company, but you have managed to convince your regional fund to say, okay, this looks like really good company and like a good project, then we would accept a funding of a regional fund as a condition, as an entry condition to the DFFF. Just one thing aside. We require minimum budgets, so we do not really fund the very small films, but I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's not so high. So it's 1 million for fiction, 2 for animation, 200,000 for documentary. And I mean, if we are talking about co-productions, I would say these are low budgets. You have to spend at least 25% in Germany, and in Germany really means in Germany, on German ground. The financing has to come, 20% of the financing has to come from Germany, from the German producer, and he has to bring at least 5% on investment. That is a rule which has come in a bit later. You have to pass a certain cultural test, which however is not so difficult. I can answer questions if you've got questions, but it is something like it has to do, or the film must have a certain relation to Germany or to Europe or to literature. So there are certain conditions which you have to fulfill, like in the first part of our test, and the second test is more like you have to employ some people from Germany or from Europe. We handle this. We accept both. And as I said before, you really need a confirmation by a distributor. And the distributor has to prove that he has distributed successfully already. We have a certain list on our website where you can see which distributors are working in the way we accept, let's say. And so then if you work with one of the distributors, we would accept your application. We are a bit soft in when you come to us and you don't really have the full contract or whatever, then we will say, okay, if you have a letter of an LOC, letter of confirmation, or a convincing letter of intent, then we will say, okay, before we pay the first installment, show us the contract, but if you can convince us that the distributor will be there, we would go with it and go for it. Sometimes. Okay, how much do you get? You get the maximum you get is 20% of the German costs. For purely German films, we always have to make a cap. I mean, that's European law, let's say. We have to make a cap at 80% of the total budget, but normally 20% of the German costs is what you get. We count the period until the answer print. So the whole production process is basically the process we are funding. We take out some costs like development costs, insurance, financing, etc. Of course, they are in your budget, so they make up the 100%. But then if we look at the costs which we subsidize, we would take these costs out. But we are generous on other sides because, as I said before, you have to spend 25% of your budget in Germany. But then if you have a script, for example, and I think we will talk about that later and we will hear a good example. If you have a script which requires that you have to shoot, for example, in Sweden, because the story just takes place in Sweden, and if you have exterior shoots where you really see this is Sweden, then we would of course not say, well, you have to build Sweden in Germany now. No, we wouldn't, but we would accept, okay, up to 40% of your costs, of course the German costs, of the shooting in Sweden is also subsidized. For documentary films, we do not even make this 40% cap, but we say, okay, if a German documentary filmmaker wants to tell a story about, I don't know, an African village, then of course he has to shoot it there. And then as long as he spends 25% in Germany for the other costs, we will accept the costs in Africa. Okay, oh yes, and we are also very generous. And for example, when non-German crew comes to Germany, I mean, you can imagine, we have had that case like with the Cloud Atlas or other productions. When big productions come to Germany, then of course you have a team and you have actors and you have a director maybe who are not German or who are not even European. But as long as they work in Germany and as long as they stay there, then we would subsidize the costs. We have a cap at 4 million euro per project, quite a lot, as you can imagine, as it can only be 20% of your German costs. But if you have a really, really big project, as said before, and if you convince, and in that case we have a kind of board who decides on, let's say, extra regulations of this fund, because there has to be some controlling mechanism in some kind. So if you want more, up to 10 million is really our uppest, well, the highest limit. There's no higher budget. Then you have to spend at least 35% in Germany, and or the film has to qualify with 2/3 of the points in our so-called cultural test. There's a question.
If you do the opposite and you bring a German crew to Sweden, how does it work then?
The same as before. That is fine. I mean, still in that case, it would have to be a co-production. We would still have to have a look at whether you spend as a whole of the total budget 25% in Germany, which could of course be post-production, could be different things. And if then the German team goes to Sweden and shoots there, then we would calculate and subsidize the costs up to 40% of the shooting days.
And does it have to be shot in Germany, or could it just be the post-production?
Very rarely. It happened. I mean, with documentary films, it really happens that nothing is shot in Germany. I must admit, when I was really new, I think in March this year, I went to watch a film. I was invited to the premiere of a documentary, and I thought, there's nothing in Germany. It's everywhere on the world, but it's not in Germany. So yes, it works sometimes. I mean, you really have to look at your costs. Of course, we would like some shooting days in Germany, but we do not have like a minimum number of shooting days. No.
Another question, does it have to be a theatrical distribution or
Absolutely.
DVD and both
No.
TV?
No. Theatrical. And that is really, you really have to be sure about that, because and you have to rely, and you really have to, well, I mean, it's basically your German partner would have to make sure, because he makes the agreement with the German distributor. But if you don't get a theatrical release in Germany, in the worst case, you would have to pay the subsidy back. That's not funny. I think it hasn't happened so far, but where was I? Ah, this was the cap. This was the cap. Yeah, the DFFF money, as I said, is a subsidy in every case. You only, as we've just said, basically, you only have to pay back if you do not fulfill certain conditions. As I said, I think it really hardly ever happened. I mean, there's less than 25% spending. That can, of course, happen, but I think we always got around it so far. The advantage is it is an automatic scheme, so whether I like your project or not doesn't matter. I would be happy if I did, but it doesn't, it's no relevance for your selection. We don't have deadlines, so whenever you see that your film is, or your project is at a point that you think you can apply, then you just come, and please early enough, so that both sides have got the time to evaluate your application. So basically you can really put it in and come to us whenever you like. Of course, funding as long as the money is available, because as I said, we've got 60 million or next year 70, but it's really on a first come first served basis, and like now, towards the end of the year, money gets a bit tight. Yeah, sometimes when you are really quick, then you might even get some cash flow for your productions, because some productions have managed to get the first installment during the production, because normally you would get everything at the end, but you can always ask us to get your subsidy in 3 installments. Normally we would always say yes, unless there is let's say the 25% are a bit tricky, or there are certain doubts, then we would, for your own safety, say let's have a look at it in the end. But normally we would also cash flow, i.e. the first installment would come when you start shooting, when everything is ready, and the second one with the rough cut, and the last one, of course, at the end. Oh, yes, sorry.
How much are the installments each, the percentage of the installments?
33, 33, 34. And in some cases, when we see in the end that you have spent more in Germany than you thought, or than you calculated at the beginning, we would even give you a higher subsidy. We've got like 8%, a margin of 8%, where we can give you even more money. So, and of course, towards the end of the year, that also gets a bit tricky, because then sometimes the funds are just not there. So maybe you should do your final auditing then in the coming year. But that is also a possibility. More questions? Because I'm at the end of my presentation, basically. There comes Lisa with a tricky one. You can see her not on her face.
No, the tricky one is there.
No, not very tricky. But how long does it take for you to evaluate a project?
Normally, I would say 4 weeks. But in most cases, to be honest, the application is not complete when it comes in, because I must admit, I mean, you calculate your total budget, you calculate your spend in Germany, you calculate your eligible costs, so it is a bit tricky to do the calculation basically in 4 columns. Maybe we talk about it later, or can even see some examples of it. But normally 4 weeks if it's really easy, and then it goes like, because we have, as I said, it's first come first serve, so we have to pay attention to a certain order of the application. So sometimes when, for example, if the application is not very complete, then one of my colleagues will write an email to you, say this and this is missing. Then it depends on you how quick you are in delivering the missing documents, and then it might have to wait a little bit because there are some projects before yours. But normally, I have seen some cases, some projects where it took around 3 months or 4, but it was mainly the case then that the financing changed, or that something went wrong, let's say. And normally, really, I would say it's between 4 and 8 weeks.
And another thing, and how much of the financing do you need to have in place before you can apply? Let's say Sweden and Germany are co-producing. Do you have 50% of each country, or?
Yeah, well, we need 75% of the total in place, but I mean, our guidelines now say 75% when you come to us, when you apply. in practice this has not worked, because then it gets a bit difficult. So what we are changing in the guidelines now and what we are practicing already now is that come to us whenever you see what your financing is going to be like, have some financing in place, have a distributor on board, and then come and talk to us. And then before we give you the confirmation of the funding, we would ask you to have 75 in place.
Just a specification regarding the reference project that you needed from the distributor. Is it in this case then the Swedish producer that needs to have a film released in Germany, or is it the German co-producer?
It's the German co-producer, and it's the reference from the German co-producer that his film or her film has been released.
Are there any more questions? I think that we will come back to you later on when we go into the specific project, and we might discuss the FFF as well as regional funds, because that's part of the process of Simon and the Oaks. But thank you very much, Connie, and welcome on stage, Christer Nilsson, producer of Simon and the Oaks.
Should we start with a quick trailer? Nu är jag ingen sån här Mac. Jag är en sån Mac-märka så jag kan inte sätta igång PC.
Men ska vi se. Nu kommer vi in här. Så ligger den där. Och så hel färg. Så kör vi bara.
Ska vi ta och köra den andra också? You should just notice that this is the Swedish theatrical teaser that we just showed you, and this is the American trailer. Slightly different.
Om vi visar det här brevet för någon nu. Och så kanske vi utsätter Simon för fara. Brände.
Så varför är han inte som alla andra ungar? Nej, han sitter hemma och läser. Massa vuxenböcker som du ger honom.
Redan i ett par extra utsändningar har det meddelats att Tyskland inlett fientligheter mot Polen.
Så etwas zumuten kann! Svenska trupper försvarar våra gränser.
Åker du till Tyskland eller jude?
Gillar du judar?
Min pappa har sagt att Sverige ska börja samarbeta med tyskarna. Och då behöver jag om alla judar.
Tror inte du åt fläsk? Jag är säker på att Gud är mer accepterande i tider av krig.
Det är vad konsten handlar om. Den låter oss komma in till en inre värld. För mig är det ett sätt att överleva.
Efter alla år, det bestämde jag att vi skulle strunta i det.
Så inget för.
Vad är du så jävla rädda för?
Jag anar att du mycket älskar dig.
Jag har tänkt mycket på dig.
Jaså?
Det här handlar om dig, Simon, om vad du vill. Du kommer inte att förlora honom, men han måste få gå sin egen väg.
Okay, it just opened in the United States. Can I also have further help on? So yes, my name is Christian Nilsson. I'm from Göta Film, a company that most of you Swedish would know is a Gothenburg-based company. Once in our history, also Beata used to work with us, and the company will be 25 years. We'll celebrate that next year, and our main field is feature films and TV drama. We've done series like The Nya Landet, Till Kamp, Saltön and others, and also lots of documentaries and shorts. But now more and more feature films are the main products of our company. This is our last production, and I will go through some slides and some facts on this production, and then we'll come back to the final financing sheet and go through together with you and together with Stefan from Schmitzkatze to just sum up how this film was financed, as it was from Swedish circumstances quite a high budget film, 6 million euros, and it was a film that was financed through 30 different financiers, public and private funds and sources. This is 2 examples of the posters, as you see, the Swedish and the German one. And I'm going to make an attempt to go through this. Is just to point on the arrow, or yes. So this is in the beginning. I could also tell you that I really met this story very, very long time ago. The book was released in 1986 in Sweden, and 88. When we started Göta Film, I met with Marianne Fredriksson, and we met in Gothenburg, as this Simon and the Oaks was is still some of the quite few big novels that describes Gothenburg and is based in Gothenburg, and takes us on a ride through the 30s and 40s and 50s of Gothenburg. And one of my friends, who was an accountant when we started, he received as a personal gift the option for this book from Marianne Fredriksson. Why? Well, because he had almost the same personal history as Simon in the book, and when he met with Marianne and told her his story, she gave the rights to him for free. So he had them for 5-6 years. Personally, I had worked with film, but as a production manager and unit manager before, and I was too green, so to speak, to take on such a big project by then. So I didn't give it more thought, and I just hoped that it would happen someday. And 2006, a producer colleague of mine from Denmark, Per Holst, who had been one of the directors at Nordisk Film, he called me and said, I have the rights to Simon and the Oaks. Do you want to be my Swedish partner and try to produce and finance the film? of course, I said immediately, not knowing what was ahead of me. And we started working on it, and Björn Runge, Swedish director, and the Dutch screenwriter Marianne Block was already on board, and we started applying for funds, and this was in 2007. This is a curiosity. This is our first development budget. We applied for money from the Swedish Film Institute, from Pjotr Gustafsson, and from the Nordic Film and Television Fund, and we received the fundings we needed to start working with the development of the script and the project. And this was one of our first information sheets. And this was the financing plan as it looked, 2008. And what then happened in 2009 was that Björn Runge decided to leave the project because he demanded us to greenlight the project, and we couldn't do that because we didn't have money enough to do it. We had been, for instance, rejected from the Euromarche, although we were 5 countries working together: Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Germany and Holland. And that was a big surprise to us and damaged the project a lot. So we had to find 5-6 million Swedish from other fundings. So the work with the project continued. When Björn Runge decided to leave the project, we started to talk to all of our financiers and co-producers, and we all decided that the star of this project was not Björn Runge, but the story itself and the novel. And the novel had then been sold in around 4.5 million copies in Europe, and this was the first adaptation of one of Marianne Fredriksson's novels ever. And she herself had sold around 17 million copies of her books in Europe. So we knew that there was a market and interest for a story from her. Of course, this in many ways is a nightmare when you lose your director in the middle of the financing and the pre-production of a project. But the only thing we could do was to discuss the matter between ourselves, and we decided to go further with the project and try to find a new director. We made a list of 10 directors that we thought were really good for this project and could make a good film, and that we had great confidence in. And I talked to these 10 names, and 4 of them were available and were really interested in doing the film. And we asked those 4 to write documents of vision, where they presented their vision for the project, which was a really interesting trip. And they also made mood reels that they presented to us. And after this part, we talked again, and we decided together that Lisa Olin was the right name for this film. She had made 3 feature films and a couple of TV series, and she, on a personal level, she also had this very strange and specific story, the same as Simon, which is that he and she got to understand that they had a Jewish background and were adopted as teenagers. And that maybe was also the reason for her to present such a strong vision to us. There was just one problem with this. She was a consultant at the Swedish Film Institute, and she was the one that for that period worked with this project. So we had to go to the board of the Swedish Film Institute and ask them, is this possible? Can we do this? And the board said yes, but she has to leave her job at the institute. She has to go into a sort of quarantine for a period of at least 3 months. But first she has to finish what she's doing, and we have to find a person that can replace her. And then you have to apply again. So the application is just cancelled. But we really strongly believed that this was a good solution for the film. And none of the other financiers draw back their supports or investments. So we continued working with the film and waited until she was available. And I could, of course, continue the financing, which I did. Some of the financing in this film is private equity, and this is one of the presentations we made. We also made recoupment plans to describe how private investors could recoup their money in this film. And of course, the more investors, the more public funds we had in the film, the more trickier these recoupment plans got. I think I'll come back to this. It's a work split describing how we splitted the money between the different countries, because with all money you're presented with different demands. We will go through the final financing plan together, me and Stefan, and try to describe what kind of demands and conditions were connected to each money. And this is the final financing plan and a financing split between the countries. I'll come back to those. The first screening of the film was shot in 2010. The first screening was in Cannes, and the Swedish release was, I'm sorry, it's the wrong year. Was a bit in a hurry when I wrote this. It was 2011, last year, and the cinema release in Sweden was in about a year ago, in the beginning of December. There you see it, the 9th of December. And this is just a few clips to show you the documents we made when we planned for the distribution of the film, how to position it as an epic drama based on Maine Fredriksson's best-selling book. We described our target groups to be primarily women between 35 and 64. Why 64? I don't know. And these were the main tools we used. And the teaser that I showed you before was a good tool. It created a good interest of this being a big film, an emotional film, an epic drama with good actors in. And this is some of the reviews we received in Sweden when we made a poster based on the reviews. And this you can probably not read, but it's a sort of sum up. I can come back to that later, of all the people involved, all the investors involved, all the festival participations, and all the countries that the film is sold to so far, as you probably know, quite few Swedish films travel abroad, and if they travel, it's mostly quite a limited distribution. When we discuss these matters, I often compare with how the Swedish cinema market looks. If you compare to similar big countries in Europe, like Belgium, Holland, Switzerland, Greece, etc., how many of those films are you able to see at Swedish cinemas per year? The domination of American and English spoken films as a whole is so big. It's almost it's between 65 and 70%, and then you have a national share that goes between 20 and 25%, meaning that there is 7, 8, 9% left of the market for other national films, and so it's tricky, and it's I think a competition that is harder and harder, unfortunately. So building financing or the plans of a film on domestic sales is very risky. If it happens, it's a bonus. Simon and the Oaks has been shown in 30 countries through the Swedish Institute and the Foreign Office as a part of different film weeks, culture events, etc. And is sold to between 15 and 20 countries. And will we earn any money from it? I doubt it. But it's really nice to be recognized, not the least in the United States, with the very good remarks. We got good reviews from prestigious media, which is really nice. And I will take you back to the final financing, and please take part, Stefan.
Shall we sit down here?
Yeah,
Yep.
let's take our seats on the stage.
And anybody has any questions so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you apply to Euromark? You said you were 5 co-producing countries, but not all of them could have been part of Euromark.
No, Holland was apart from it, because it was such a small share from Holland. And the share was really built on the fact that the screenwriter was Dutch, and that we pre-sold the film to Dutch TV.
And did the screenwriter, she was on board all the way through?
Yes.
And no other screenwriters, or?
No, just script consultants. Mm-hmm.
So please
Yeah.
take a seat, Stefan, whichever you find most comfortable. Maybe you should join us as well, Tony, so we have you nearby if we have intriguing German fun questions. Is it?
I think you would like the screen to be lit, but it's quite hard to sit with the light in your face.
Maybe if we move back,
Yeah, a little bit.
because then everybody can sit without the.
Very good.
Okay. Well, I've been introduced. I'm Stefan from Schmitz Katze Film Kollektiv, and I guess it's a lot of small information you had to think about in the last 60 minutes. But anyway, obviously there are many producers in the room, and it makes sense to go through these numbers, right? I've just
a brief question from me and maybe from somebody else. How did you two hook up?
Well, I mean, in general, I just felt like this is different to other sessions we made when we actually made the ping pong and talked about how other small steps. But there have been obviously some very, very great challenges, especially for Krista. Especially the change of the director was not at all normal, and it was a big task for everybody. We met through an ACE, and producers program, in the beginning, and the project. Krista showed me somewhere, I think in Gothenburg, when we met there also with our annual meeting. ACE, do you know ACE? All right. Also a very nice program. And I really liked the novel from the first day on. So the novel was, the reason for making the film for all of us was that there have been between 3.5-4 million copies sold worldwide, and especially in Sweden and in Germany of the book, also in the Netherlands. That's why there's also a market in Benelux for the novel, and that's why there's also a market for the book in Germany. That's what we thought, and that's where we based on the financing on. I think this is always very important, and also I just mentioned in this moment about the DFFF, the distribution, to have the distribution on board, which means to have a clear market in Germany, is so crucial. It's also that the distributor, not only the producer, also the distributor has to have, he has to show a reference. So you can't just say I'm the distributor myself in Germany, but you need one of the distributors on the list of the DFF, which means who has at least released, I think, what is the rule now? 23 films in 24 months. So with a minimum of copies as well. Yeah, at least 30 copies, and 15. So the to hook the money in Germany as in other markets, you need, as far as I see it, and as we also develop our projects, a very clear vision of the audience you want to reach. Okay, there's so much to say about making films, and I think now we use your attention span, which maybe is not so long anymore, to go really through the numbers.
I don't think we ought to spend.
Shall we take the other second map, because it's a little bit more structured. I mean, it's not it's structured, but it's a lot of.
Thank you, Stefan.
Many details.
I'm sorry, but this is Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Germany. For me, it's easier to understand.
For the Swedish sources, I think you're quite familiar with those, aren't you? Can I stand in front of the loudspeaker? Oh, I'll try. The Swedish Film Institute, the Film Invest, the regional fund, and their spending demands on Swedish films are normally that you spend as much as you get, at least. For foreign films, it would be you have to spend 150% of what you get. So if you get 2, you have to spend 3. The Swedish television, we had an investment as well as payment for rights. You can see that in the lower part of it, of the financing plan here. From Göta Film and some organizations in Gothenburg, as well as Lisa Olin, we have this share of 332,000 euros. And then we have the Gotland Film Fund and Novago Capital, which is a private equity fund. Then we have Nordsvensk Film Underhållning, also known as Spiltan, represented here by Per, who's somewhere sits, and Lars, you can also see. And then we also had another Swedish equity investor, Karin Zetterberg, a company that invested 2.5 Swedish million. And then we had the Danish Film Institute through our Danish partner, Asta Film, Per Holst's company. And the demands from the Danish Film Institute as well as the Norwegian Film Institute is that they cannot have a bigger share than 60% of the total amount of money invested from that country. So it means that if you get 1 million from the Danish Film Institute, you have to arrange for another, what is it?
400,000.
400,000, thank you, for private investments. So the both demands from Norwegian and Danish Film Institutes are that you also have to attract other money from that territory in order to get the amount of money that the Danish and Norwegian Film Institute decide to support the film with. We had a deal with the co-producing companies, Jetta Film, Asta Film, Schmidt-Katze, and Filmkameraterna from Norway, that every company invested a minimum of 80,000 euros in the film. That was, as is normal in these circumstances, deferrals of producers' fees and overheads.
I have a question.
There is a
Yes,
question for you.
yes, please.
You said that all production companies or co-producers invested the same producer's investment?
Yeah, as a minimum.
As a minimum.
We invested more.
Yeah, because that was also related to the amount of financing, the percentages that was in each country, or did you do it?
Yes, it was. There has been several reasons. There has been. I mean, it's all a process, of course. Some financing you see here in the end has been acquired also during the production because of we needed more money. But also it is that we there was a minimum. The work, for example, in Norway was quite clear. It was part of the post-production, and there was some Norwegian team. I mean, basically it was VFX in Norway, whereas there was more needed also, for example, in Germany was more investment needed to convince investors. So it was depending on several factors.
We can also pan to the this work split document. If you can see that. This was made during the process, and it might not be the final figures, but it can just illustrate how we needed to try to structure the production from the money and investment demands point of view. As you see, we received money from in Germany from the Hamburg Film Fund and the Berlin Brandenburg Film Fund.
Shall I go through it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean it's also related when we started this to the column, the part we would have come to anyway on the other slide. Well, I mean, we wanted to have Hamburg being kind of a main regional location, the Hamburg Film Fund, for shooting the film in the studio, and we received 320,000 euro from them. I mean, maybe it's not the final numbers, as I said, they changed. But regional film funds, as Connie explained in the beginning, they depend on your spend. But also, in general, the idea of the regional film fund is that they attract investment in the area. So you get money, and you have to spend more money than you get. And you had 100 to 150% what the film funds demand. Our, for example, Berlin Film Fund is proud to have 350% average of spend. And if you go there and say, I spend 150%, then you need some really good reasons why they support you, because it's not enough. And we all, I mean, if you are more in an area where they maybe don't have so competitive films, which is every year less, because a lot of people want to shoot and get the money from Germany, but it's always easier to have a little bit more in the area so you bring double the money in the area. We of course tried, especially with Simon, where we also had many structural challenges and problems to solve. We tried to not to spend too much percent, but already in the application you promise a certain percentage, and if you don't come to it in the end in the final auditing, which was a 2-year process with Simon now, also with the DFF, and if you in the auditing don't come and fulfill all these promises of the applications, then you might not receive the money which was confirmed. So this was a challenge here, and it's an example for Hamburg where we also, as you can imagine with other funds, had to say yes, we want to shoot, or they have some preferences of work. They are, or everybody doesn't want to have only post-production. They prefer shooting and they prefer their actors, etc. But with Medium Board, well, in Brandenburg, the Medium Board we call them from Berlin, it's basically the same idea. It's the same idea. You have a regional film fund and you have to spend the money in the area, and better it's more percent than less. We also had investors, co-financiers, which have been the same time in Germany, delivering companies, service companies, the lab, we made the lab work in Germany, and also the rental, which also was brought to Sweden, and they invested money into the film. Had quite big turnover, of course, because we gave them money as well. We negotiated with this film with a number of distributors, but as now we are, thank you. Hello.
Go back to the other one.
Well, anyway, it was the distributor gave an MG in Germany. We had another bigger distributor on board, but they had made problems in negotiating the contract, so we switched in the last moment to a smaller one, which anyway spent the same amount. In addition, you see the DFFF. Here we faced this question in our production that we had to come to spend more than 25% of the total budget in Germany. We structured the whole production in a way that this is possible. When the film went slightly over budget, as many films do, we had to make sure that we still have enough money to spend 25% in Germany. A big issue actually, also with spending at least 20% or so in financing, and I'm sure some people who make co-productions know this. If you know there's a co-production partner, for example, in Russia, and they say, hey, we make this great Swedish-Russian film, and they have an over budget, which is maybe 2 million. They say, no problem. I know actually one film, Mogul, which was exactly this topic with X film, and they said, the Russians said, hey, it's no problem, you don't matter, we have 2 million more, we have 2 million. And they said, well, it doesn't matter because we don't hold our percentage, so we lose all our money here in Germany. I think this is a big topic for co-productions.
Was it ever in jeopardy that you wouldn't make the percentages for DFFF as well as for the regional funds?
Well, actually, it's not only the DFFF has this rule. The regional funds, and that's the same for all regional or all European subsidy, they follow the international treaties, and in this case we made a co-production following the European Convention for Cinematic Co-Productions. Yeah?
I have a question.
Okay.
I mean, if you're dealing with a Russian partner or with a Kyrgyzstan partner or a Chinese partner, how do you control the auditing in that country?
Oh, this is a good question. Yeah. You know what? We just made a film with Poland, and there was this topic. Hey, are you really sure you can control everything? So shall we just keep it separated and don't do it? And then they made 1.6 million people in cinema, and we thought, shit, we should have made everything together and also participate in the market. Well, you know maybe better. Haven't you made a film with them?
Oh, I have made it with a lot of countries, but this is really the question. I mean, you're talking about 25% of X.
Yeah.
And who is defining X? And if there is one company that is doing the auditing globally, but it's not there. And we are not American companies or American pressure groups that can get to the real numbers. So you have to trust the papers you get out of Russia, of China, whatever these countries are. I believe in Sweden it's probably quite correct. But there are other countries around. What do you say to this?
Yeah, that makes it very difficult for us, of course. I would say if this project had a good end, what we are concerned, we found a solution, but of course we were also sorry to see, I mean, it costs a lot of financing money to you as well, because we couldn't close from the DFFF side because we needed basically the confirmations of the individual countries to really see how much have they spent and how much was the total budget. I would say really it requires a good collaboration, a very trustful collaboration between the producers. It worked in the end, yeah, but we really had to wait, and I mean, we were with your colleague in constant contact to really find a solution.
Yeah, but do you send your auditor to Russia?
Yeah, but this is indeed. But you're right. There's this moment when I just remember also, because it is indeed difficult to say if you do this in Kyrgyzia. Probably you have to trust them, and it depends on your treaties. You have to make the contract. You just say, okay, the Kyrgyzians, they are as good as Swedish or German. But the problem with all these countries is that we need to apply our auditing tools to the other auditing. And we had indeed for this film to get a proof on the costs from all 4 countries. I would never suggest, to be honest, the vision shouldn't be to have so many financing sources. We always intend to have 3 co-producers, and maybe in bigger co-production 10 to 15 sources. This is an exception, right? Even for you, I mean, it's an exception.
Of course. I mean, do you do this because it's fun? No. You do it because you need to. There are nicer way of traveling around the world. No, I mean, of course, we did all this because we need it, and you come up to a point where you can actually, you cannot involve more regional fund, for instance, because there's no money left to spend. You cannot spend 150% in each country.
You can. I remember in ACE we had one case studies of 2 hours, a British girl talking about all these things, and then in the end everybody was like, hey, you have to spend 130% of 100% financing if you want to make this plan. Yeah. And she was like, really? But Christoph, for just a second, I just remember, I mean, we all have like ongoing projects, and I just jump back in time in my head to come to remember this DFFF auditing, which took us for this film until 5 months ago in June. I think this particular question of how we present the costs of the co-producers in Germany or their own costs, we could solve indeed through simply presenting the auditing they made for themselves. And the DFFF was, in this case, maybe because European countries, quite nice with us. Our problem was, and this is also a typical problem about auditing, and especially with the DFFF, that everybody wanted to have the auditing of the others done. Like the Swedish part would say, hey, we need your German auditing, and we say, well, actually, we need your German Swedish auditing. And it's no fun. It's no fun. It's really, I mean, honestly, we made 2 big films. I mean, for us, big films of this size, coincidentally at the same time. And after closing the budgets, starting auditing, I think we really practically spent about 150,000 euro for 2 years and 2 people and all this communication auditing just to make to close it, and it's not in the books. And I think this is I mean, this is
and it also creates a big cash flow problem,
and
because
big cash flow problems. Yeah,
you cannot release the final money from the different funds and financiers before you have the final accounts.
And it meant basically that somebody makes an auditing, like a pre-auditing, and then says this is pre-auditing, and then you have an external auditor who says this is right, and then you take this is right auditing to you're very, very nice people in your own fund from the other country, and they say, well, it's not exactly the final auditing, but it's almost the final auditing from this, and you make your auditing and send it back to Sweden, and then, you know, you have the same thing with Denmark, and we even in Germany have different auditings for the different funds. Sometimes they would exclude some money, and the DFFF says, as we have seen the rules, no development or certain costs are not eligible. So I guess, and fees, handling fees are lower, and so I think this is something where I, with every new film project, and it's like a new business plan you incubate for every new project, right? And you think, well, great, now it's financed. Now they just have to shoot the film and make some post-production, and I'm going for the next projects already. That's wrong. That's wrong.
So now we have a question from the audience.
Yeah, during this party year of auditing, how did you solve the cash flow problems practically?
Well, by doing other things, by producing other things. And what was tricky was, of course, that the financiers, especially the private equity financiers, had to wait for their money. Because especially the important Swedish PRS, the ticket support, was held back until we showed the final accounts. So it took some while, and it was a great, tricky job to do it. But I would just like to go back to the split. Because I think that might be interesting to some of you. We could come back to the sort of summing up things. As you can see, we have gone through Sweden. We've talked about Denmark, the necessity of finding other funds in Denmark, and one interesting exception with Denmark compared to other countries is that the support from the Danish Film Institute is rising if you can attract the regional film fund, in this case Film Fyn, because the amount of money you get from Film Fyn, 50% of that will be added automatically by DFI. So that's interesting. In Norway, we had these two private investors, Filmkameraterna, our co-producers, and Gemtwill, who did special effects. Hamburg we talked about this thing about going there, spending 167%, and shoot 11 days in studio, using equipment, etc., and lab. From Berlin, you see here, the conditions were 200%. And we could solve that through Schmidt-Katze being residents in Berlin, through a number of actors that we used that I think added really quality value to the film. A tremendously gifted composer, and we went there to shoot for 3 or 4 days, which also added value to the film. And I mean, overall, this is something that you have really to evaluate how to meet all these spending demands without losing the quality of your project. I mean, that's a tricky thing, and we will never know if we did the right choices, but I think we succeeded in following the rules and the demands and adding values to the film from different countries. But what you should be aware of is that all this co-production job, putting together these work splits and spending what you have to spend, doing all the legal works, etc., costs a lot of money. I mean, in general, in Sweden, I think an average budget would be 2.5 million euros. And maybe you can finance 2 million in Sweden. For a high budget, you have to go abroad to Nordic countries, and on the next level, up to this 6 million we spent on this film, you have to involve more countries in Europe to make that happen. So even if it costs a lot of time and money, it has been necessary for this film to be able to produce it. But I think you should be aware of that foreign money costs, I would say, 30% maybe. I haven't calculated thoroughly about that, but I would say at least 30% it costs you in higher costs, and not to mention the amount of time it takes to arrange for this, for the production.
Stefan mentioned that costs went up during production, and I also read some notes you made on kind of like a diary where you can see that the budget raises quite heavily after first day of production. Where were the costs, and how did you manage to make sure that the money came from the right sources to fill all the to fulfill all the demands from the different contracts you signed?
It was a tricky process. I mean, from the point where Lisa Olin started on the or you should back into the financing plan we saw from 2008, where the budget was 48 million Swedish, and it ended up on around 60 million Swedish. Well, some of that money was obviously added to the budget before we started, but I would say 50% was added before the shoot and the rest during the shoot. Let's say that we went over budget from the point where we decided to greenlight the film with say 5-6 million Swedish, and it was my job to arrange for that money, and it's not good for your night's sleep to be aware of the fact that you're shooting a film that is not fully financed. But I believe very strongly that we were making a really good film, and I also found when I talked to people and financiers about the film that they also saw the potential in it. And I think we started talking quite early, Per and Lasse from Spiltan. I think you were called Spiltan by then, weren't you, when we started? And you're called Nordsvensk today. And I think we kept on discussing how to deal with this for 2.5 years. Could be so, 2 years at least. And the Swedish private financing came on board during the editing of the film. And due to good relations with the bank, we could cash flow contracts with distributors, regional funds in Sweden, Swedish Film Institute, etc. But that was really tricky. And I think we managed at the end to do it without creating too big problems for the percentages in the spending in the budget.
You got what it's.
This was really,
but it was worrying.
Yeah, it was really well done by especially Krista. I mean, you solved many questions. I mean, he did, and I also the film. I mean, how do you come to an over budget on the film? We had another film in the same time just before where we had a horrendous over budget because of certain things which happened, which we didn't know before. It was also a historic film, and I would say that especially period films can have this moment when you say, okay, we need these kind of 2 or 3 shooting days, or your director says, and you say, well, actually no, we can't pay it, and then the director would start to use all the weapons possible to get these 3 days. And Krista, just a nice guy, I would say, nicer than other producers. I would say, okay, let's try, and Half, simply as you said, you really believed in the film always, and got also in between already kind of an advanced feedback from financiers. I mean, bottom line is that I believe other producers would have, I mean, I don't know, I mean, the way, in the end, since there was also this cinema success, especially in Scandinavia now. And I would say this is just the right decision to believe in the product. But hey, this film had how many shooting days? We had 53, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 53 shooting days for a film is a lot. And I remember that we had days in studio which was on our account, and we had 100 kilowatt electricity in the studio one moment, 100. I mean, sometimes people care about this kind of, hey, I want to have a 6 kV or 12, yet all these lights on. It looks great. It looks really great, but especially in the beginning of the production, there was some dreams of the creative part where we together, and also yourself, we have all been visionary and creative and thought, okay, let's go for it. And
it's also this tricky unmentioned thing when you negotiate with people and they know that you're making a big budget film. Everybody would ask for more money, a higher salary. Every company that works for us would ask for it. The director of photography, production designers, etc. They want to make something extra, and all extras cost. We have created 2 really big studio sets that look fantastic, but that costs a lot of money. I think that little extra, that of course, I mean, as a producer, you want to be a part of making a great film, and you're positive in principles to adding extra values to your film, because you strongly believe that if the film is really good, it will attract better reviews, it will attract a bigger audience, it will be sold to more countries. And where is that, that balance between ambitions and how much it's allowed to cost? And all of you that have been working with films know that defending a budget during a shoot, especially if it's a film with high values and high ambitions, and it's a 30, 40, 50s story where you have to dress and cut every person in picture. It costs a lot of money, and I don't know how many of those films we will be able to make in the future, because the market is diminishing, the incomes from MGs, TV sales, etc. is getting lower and lower, and the climate for that kind of films is really getting harder and harder.
And there is quite a substantial part of the financing that comes from private equity, we can see. So have they recouped, or are you still?
The Swedish private equity has recouped, yes.
Well, I mean, partly since we shared in the recoupment all territories, and also the other co-producers, for example, participated in the Scandinavian success, and so we share, and I believe there can even the possibility of getting some from non-stop sales after they recoup the MG.
Which is the international sales agent,
which is the international sales agent, right? It's Turner Group today. Well, the success with how many do you have now in cinema in Sweden?
350.
350,000. I mean, this is already a number where something arrived, and I would say 80% of the private investment is recouped. 70-80%.
So it means that without this Swedish ticket support, it would definitely not have been able to finance the film and attract the amount of private equity that we managed to do. Yes, questions on this? Reflections?
One over there.
Looking at this list, in the rearview mirror, is there anything you think today I should have, or you guys should have done this differently, or is this perfection?
It's not it's pragmatism.
No, but seriously, like which can I look back on, like this was an ill decision?
I would like to start with an answer, since I had this now several times on projects, and also Simon is one of them. I'm really proud about this film. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but I think it's a very emotional, strong film. And I called recently in sales agent in the US just last week, and he said, "Hey, Simon, my wife just was out in cinema and she watched the film and she said something about changed her life and stuff, you know. So it's great if you have a film and it travels so much over the festivals. Our German actor, who is one of the important German actors, received best a Gold Bugger supporting actor in Sweden award because he learned Swedish. He is thankful, and I mean it was a good performance. Even so, they have on a cultural level and even on a private level. I think this is great to have done such a film and to have it in your portfolio and, you know, and show it to your friends and family. I believe that you need to be a little bit naive and even live when you are a bit more grown up even than others. You need to be to live the luxury of staying naive on this product and really say, okay, let's go for it. There are so many moments to doubt and say no. And of course, you can jump into cold water and think this was too cold and catch a cold. But I mean, we only catch a cold, right? I mean, then you lose your money, and that's it. I guess I would avoid in future projects definitely to have too many small ingredients. But you see, now for example, we have 3 or 4, and just give it back to you, but I want to say our new projects, for example, we did and now especially we develop projects where we have basically a brand which is at least at one or in many markets so strong that we believe that we actually could attract only few financiers, you know, just this one big pre-sale and this soft money and that's it. Just the studio pays it all. And then it's all easy, but all ranges of budgets, if it's 5 million, 5 to 15, 15 to 50, or I mean at least in this independent to 50 million, it's all the same rules, and you come in the end to the moment where you need to combine many resources of finances. Even the studios, or the independent sections of the studios, I have some friends who finance these kind of things. They also look for soft money in different territories and combine everything. Maybe they have more people to deal with it, and they have all this legal, administrational department, but it's not so unlogical in the end, I would say.
Well, I certainly agree on what you say, that everybody is, if you want to work with bigger productions, you always look for the commercially strong products. You know that you can attract a studio, big MGs. I mean, we are collaborating with one of the French majors, UGC. They want to shoot a film in Sweden built on a commercially successful novel. And the budget is around 7 million euros, and they have 5 million euros as an MG for France. And I mean, there you go with a totally another situation, and that wasn't possible with this project, I'm afraid. So it forced us to make this journey, but of course you collect so many experiences from doing this. So yes, I would do some things differently, but I have to admit now, looking backwards, that if we had been waiting for the total financing to come into place before we started shooting the film, or we greenlighted the film would never have been produced. I mean, that's a fact. Then we would have waited and waited and waited. Also, you know, with the risk of losing some of the money we already had received, and we could have lost actors, key members of the team, etc. So it's that magic moment where you have to use your gut feeling and your experience as a producer or a co-producer. When can you greenlight the film? When can you say, yes, we go for it? We don't have the full financing yet, but let's do the film. And,
we actually, I remember we greenlighted the film indeed because we needed to greenlight it.
Yes.
because we need to present to the DFFF that we start shooting. The DFFF, and Connie was not in there yet, but this will happen more often than she will learn in the future, because the rule here is that you have to start shooting 4 months after confirmation of the fund. Then you have to close financing, which takes, of course, quite time. So we had shooting days. But anyway, I also agree.
Which we then used in the completed film.
We used
it was an enormously snowy day. It never happens otherwise in Gothenburg, where we could have one of the actors walking in the snow on a deserted street, and we used it in the film.
Yeah, but you see, although to jump in cold water, as we said, I think this starts. Many of you know, even not when you greenlight the film, but earlier, because we had a plan A and a plan B, how we want to do it with Eurymarsh, with less financing resources, and when this plan doesn't work out, you try B, and it's waiting doesn't mean that you wait, that you're working every day and you invest development money and more money and more money. So I would say, in a certain moment, we need also to make to start to believe in ourselves, because else we would have just give the film away and start again 3 or 4 years development process for another film, and it can happen. The same thing can happen. So I guess this is necessary to then just go for it.
I mean, you can imagine the effect if the Eurymarsh support had been in place for this film. We could have
15, right? 15.
Yeah, we could have reduced 5-6 financiers in this project, and I was really pissed off by that. I think that trans-European money is really necessary, at least if you're about to make a high-budget film, a big film from a small country in Europe. I mean, what more can you show? I was also involved in producing the Everlasting Moments of Maria Larsson by Jan Troell, was the Swedish Oscar nomination, and has received an enormous amount of awards. And that film was also denied by the Eurymarsh, and it's a lottery, and that field of the producer's work is a nightmare, because it doesn't matter how clever you are and how good products you come up with. When you're about to meet a group of people that are about, to say yes and no to your film, and that are not involved in it, have no personal relations to it, it's just a meeting.
It's really European politics. I mean, probably Eurymarsh now, what it works. We received it for a few films we did, and very often we had this kind of experience, but we never took it again as a plan A. Actually, for us, it was always a plan B or C. That means we would, since it's such a short frame, you need so much money to be confirmed to apply, and then you again have to shoot in such a short time after you receive the confirmation that Eurymarsh, and it's 15%, that this can only be an addition. Like, I finance a film, I know I'm going to shoot in 4 months, and I have the application period of Eurymarsh, and I can try to, kind of substitute some money of this budget, but I wouldn't count on it. It's a lottery. And especially from a German perspective, it's very difficult. This is meant to support the small countries, and then you need all these numbers. I guess, of course, would have been helpful for us, Eurymarsh.
Questions, comments, reflections? Yes?
Did you employ a collection agent for the recruitment?
Yes, we have the ECA, European Collecting Agency from Copenhagen. I think that's really necessary, because you have to use transparency in a project like this for all the investors to feel safe about the money flows.
What were what was the spend in Denmark?
What kind of spend?
Since Denmark is one of the co-production countries, You already said that VFX was part of the Norwegian.
This was Norwegian. We had an orchestra, for example, a very good orchestra in Denmark.
Yeah, the orchestra comes from Fyn, for instance, the Odense Orchestra. During the shoot, we had the camera crew, the director of photography and his crew, as well as gaffers. So he had his crew coming to the production, and then we also edited in the major part of it in Denmark, and we made the sound design in Denmark.
Yeah.
I have a question. On the other sheet that you had up, I saw that the Gotland Film Fund, Gotland had put in like 50,000 krona, which is an extremely small amount. They're the smallest funder in. What was your reflection on that? And what did they contribute?
It's really Novago Capital and Gotland Film Fund.
Okay, and they put
collaborating.
In
so they have a sum of 1.5 million Swedish together.
Okay, so they weren't really in Gotland, or?
No, there were no demands. The share for Gotland was too low, and they're also allowed to just invest. The Gotland Film Fund so far has not had any rules of spending in the geographical area.
Mm-hmm. If the company doesn't make back the money, who takes the loss?
Which company? Which company do you mean?
I mean, for example, it was said that the Germans, they want the money back if it's profitable, the film. Mm-hmm. So in what order do you give it back? And if it doesn't, if you could only get back 50 million instead of 60, who takes the loss of that?
Well, the rules differ a bit, but many of these public funds have rules, like for instance the Swedish Film Institute and the Nordic Film and Television Fund, that you're allowed to recoup 135%. That is, you're allowed as private investor to have a 35% profit on your investment before you start to share the incomes proportionally to the different public funds.
Because I guess this exactly this part of the explanation is advanced style. Yeah. First of all, the money we use for the film, as you see, and biggest part is so-called soft money, like 70%, which was means that it's in conditional loan. We have to pay it back when we receive some money, and the investors, they also put in money as equity and get money back once money flows in. Maybe it's not too simple for many of you, but I just start here. Secondly, we have a recoupment plan, and the recoupment plan for this film is quite complicated. So we sat down and put all financing kind of obligations out of every contract flow into this. Some people wanted to be on first position, some agreed to be on a second position. When the others have recouped, they start recouping, and then you have like a whole scheme of where we call it water flow, where the money flows in and it flows first to them, and then they are full, it flows to the others, and then they're full, it flows to the others. And to control this structure, we applied a collecting agent who helped us to make this plan. Is this an answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like this tower of champagne glasses, you know. Yes, please.
I was wondering a little bit about Film Invest MG International Sales, because they're a regional fund. Did they just call
You've been surprised. You've been surprised.
Yeah.
Is this just so that they can recoup first priority in the international sales that they call it?
Yes.
Or,
Yes. And that was one of the final negotiations we had to complete the financing of the film after the film was ready. We put a couple of millions in from Göta Film and Film Invest and SVT decided to help us out because we had calculated with an MG on international sales on 1 million Swedish. But Non-Stop weren't able to put more up than 40,000 euros, as you see, and then SVT and Filminvest added the rest of the money.
And how was that a problem with the other investors when you added that because they were first priority, or was it the same?
That was accepted by generously accepted by our investors. Lasse and Per nods and look generous.
Now, yeah, in general, this moment, of course, is a tricky one, not only within one territory, but also between the two co-producers when there's some over budget and one of the co-producers finds, an investor and says, okay, he puts money in, but he wants to be there or even share the first position or be even before this position. Then you have to go back to all the other investors and have to say, well, I have to change your deal. And this was a hard time. Even for us, because as I said, Christer organized most of this over budget in Sweden because he was delegate producer and he decided for some things. So he took responsibility, but in the same time, we would have to say, okay, great. And have to go to our investors and say, oh, you don't recoup the same percentage as we promised to you. A very difficult position.
How much time would you say, like percentage-wise, since we're speaking of percentages, of your job as a producer was spent on financing and negotiating and renegotiating, etc. for this project?
Including sleep or without sleep?
Including sleep.
I have
you didn't sleep, I hope.
I have really no idea. But I would say over, let's say, 4 years, it took at least 40% of my time because we had to produce and we were successful to produce other things meanwhile to keep the company afloat. But it took a lot of time, both for me and the others at Göta Film, not at least on the head of economy who was dealing with all these figures and recoupment plans and supporting me with all that stuff.
May I ask how big your company is?
We're 5. As you probably know, a lot of Swedish production companies look like this. There are some majors, and the really exceptional thing, if you compare to other markets with the film industry, is that the production companies are fairly small, and sometimes we handle really big projects, and that's of course a big risk.
So you're already over average, because the average production house in Europe, 80% of all companies are not bigger than 3 people in movie production. So it's okay.
So I mean of course the main business we have is finding, developing, financing things, and you don't have to be a lot of people to do that. And the competition in Sweden is really hard because there are many more companies in the business compared to how many films you can make, and the overall problem is to have a continuity and find ways to have a sustainable business. And always when you go to international seminars and you have this problem to discuss how to build a sustainable business. You look at each other and you say, well, how the hell can we do that in a small country? It's really tricky because normally you're so project based. If you're not, if you don't have the access or have optioned titles that can allow you to exploit them and make long series like Läckberg or Mankel or then it's this project-based economy, and that is really tricky to handle. So our solution to that has been to produce TV drama alongside with feature films, because they are so risky.
I believe there was a question over there. Yeah, you were waving? What?
Yes,
no?
I
yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking of the administrative cost, because you have employed a lot of specialists that just for the recuperation plan, etc. How do you put that in the budget to begin with, and what's an acceptable administrative cost in a project that would be acceptable when you show your budget?
Well, formally it's 9%, isn't it, in Sweden? When you show budget to the Swedish Film Institute for administration.
Well, I again would start more globally, because this is the overhead you're talking about.
Globally?
Yeah, globally. I mean, you're talking... sorry, Krista, sorry. No, I mean, your question is aiming like, it's already development costs. You're talking about development costs. I mean, if you would have the chance to get money from the state to build a house, you rather have all the planning costs also in the budget. And when we of course in the overall film, once the film gets financed and made, also the costs from the first day are in this budget to get financed. And still, this is in the best case, the whole budget gets, I would say, the vision should still be that everything gets recouped, because the film can be so successful.
But what about the producer's time? Like you said, I was doing it like 40% with 4 years. What do you get back your time?
Good question.
And the sleep.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I will never have a decent pay for the amount of time that I spent on this film. But I mean, having a monthly salary, you have a turnover that keeps your company going, and you can split your costs on other things that are maybe more profitable. I would say that if we make a profit, we have recouped our money on this film, and our investments are recouped, but all my time is not in that cost report.
But the salary, at least during production, etc., of yours was in the budget?
The initial salary, yes, but I was not allowed by the other financiers to come up with a new invoice every month, raising my salary gradually. We have to keep our basic costs from the co-producer side.
So you should be careful to put those costs in from the beginning in the budget.
All the costs, yes. I mean, you can. What you do is you put up a cost that is accepted and would be accepted by your co-producers and investors as a decent salary. If that salary is spent on 2 years or 5 years, that's your own problem. It's the inner strange logic of producing films.
I think also it's really necessary to remind ourselves that this whole structure we are working with here, with all these subsidies involved, is made for entrepreneurs who want to make a film which doesn't actually necessarily recoup its all investment, like on a free market if you want to build another company and you just have a product and you have to sell it. But you need to live with this product and have maybe only 20 or 30% recoupment, or on the portfolio maybe 50. But if you make films one after the other which don't recoup any penny, then it's not really logical for the financiers why you make these films. So what I see, especially, I mean, at least from the German side, this is not TV. It's not that somebody says, here's $1 million, make a film, and take your percentage as a producer. But it's cinema where they actually want you to invest 10% yourself and give 90%, and you have to live from the success of the film. That's the idea. I mean, the idea. We often didn't succeed. Overall, We are in our company rather happy with how money flows, but it's again I totally agree with Krista. It would be much better for us to have a more sustainable business, of course.
I believe time is running out.
I should just add that I'm normally very honest with the private equity investors, saying that if you want to be sure about the money you have, put it in a bank account. If you want to have fun, be a part of a creative thing, and you believe that you can use the film also for profiling your business and doing different events together with people that you're working with, employees, the market, etc. Do it, be a part of it, but you should be aware of the risks. That's important.
So if we don't have any last hysterical question that needs to be asked.
I would like to give you a small present to thank you.
Okay.
And this is to avoid that you get cold feet. Now, after this production, they are Swedish-made raggsockar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I suggest we all give you a big hand.